We are live. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Comlink Chatter Podcast. Today here I have Scott Johnson. You're over there.
Hello.
And today we are going to be going through, we're actually going to be in two different eras. We are going to be in the Old Republic era with Tales of the Jedi, the Freedon Nad Uprising. And that was a duology comic series that came out in, I think it was 94, I believe so.
Wow. That's way back when. I thought it was like 95, 96, but you might be right.
Maybe. I might be thinking of the original mini-series of Tales of the Jedi. But I was looking at them today. I was looking at the release dates of them, and I think they came out every year, I believe. Let's pull it up. Oh, won't let me do that, huh?
Oh, you're right. 94.
94.
So August and September.
So we will be going over that, and then we will go forward a couple thousand years, and we will be going over issue 47 of the Republic comics. I know we skipped over Infinity's End, but we'll get to that in a few weeks. But this is a one-off story. We don't see the characters anywhere else, which is kind of sad because I kind of enjoy it. But we will be jumping into that. And that came out, I believe,
February 2001.
2001. Goodness.
Which seems a lot further away from the Phantom Menace than I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's issue 27. So, I mean, we've had a couple arcs since then,
Yeah.
which I think were Prelude to Rebellion, which came out before Phantom Menace. And we had Outlander, Emissaries of Malastare, and I think one more.
Twilight and Infinity's End came out before those.
Okay.
And then it was that one, which I have a theory about StarCrash. I could be wrong about that. But I think whenever they were starting the Republic series, I think they might have had some different ideas of how to take it. Because you have the Prelude to Rebellion, which started it off, but then in the back of some of Prelude to Rebellion, you had Vow of Justice, which was the Ki-Adi-Mundi origin story in a way. And then for this one, you have this isolated, it sounds like it could be the start of its own series. And my theory was that they were just experimenting to see which ones kind of stuck and to see where they wanted to continue it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, this one was a weird one. I remember picking up these issues at the time, and we got things like the Deveronian version, and they were really experimenting hard with some of that stuff, where the Deveronian version was a retelling of a story that had come prior, but it was almost Infinities, but it wasn't. It was in universe, but it was a different story of what happened.
Right.
And you had like Darth Sidious in there, and it was really wild, a really weird one. I don't think anything like that has ever happened in the EU. But yeah, they were all over the place, and I wasn't sure I was liking the comics at this point. I really liked Outlander. Emissaries of Malastare was pretty good as well. But I wasn't too keen on Quinlan Vos right away. It wasn't until like the Clone Wars arcs that I really got invested into his story. And then I thought, well, okay, his story is really interesting now. Let me go back and reread those again to see if it makes sense. And unfortunately, no, it still doesn't do it for me. Like Twilight, not that interesting for me. Unfortunately, I might be in the minority in that though. So that's just my preference.
I much preferred Quinlan's story arc in the Clone Wars. I don't know that. I think I hear a lot of people say that it all flows very nicely together, but I think some of that stuff's stronger than this stuff. But I did also read those before I read these, which was kind of odd because I had collected. It was the trade paperbacks for the Republic where they had like Battle of Camino, the Face of the Enemy, and like Battle of Jubim. It was like the white covered ones.
Right.
I was able to pick all those up, which I didn't realize that they were missing issues like Honor and Duty and just different things like that. But so I had read Quinlan Voss's the later half of his story before the earlier half, but I think they're pretty good, but not as good.
Yeah, I mean, the Clone Wars was when the Republic comic series was firing on all cylinders, and I think that's some of the best Star Wars comic material there is. But when Republic was started, they weren't really sure. It was kind of all over the place, and I think part of it had to do with the fact they didn't really know what was going to go on with Episode 2 yet. And fortunately for Quinlan Voss, the story does work, like you said. It actually is a compelling arc. It's just it kind of arrived that way organically and not planned in any form or fashion. So, Villy's a cool character. I think he's a little bit overused in this comic series. I know we don't see him elsewhere, but it was kind of repeated a little bit too much in Quinlan's arc here. StarCrash, it seemed like an homage to another story, and maybe I'm just misidentifying it. Maybe it's like obvious. Maybe someone in the comments knows, like Brennan. But it seems like it's a reference to like another story somewhere, but in Star Wars form. I don't know.
Right. The only thing really I could get behind the scenes about StarCrash is that our main character of it, he was put on a list of Jedi that General Grievous killed, but then eventually that was taken off. So Abel G. Pena wrote an article, or it was some piece where he listed off a bunch of Jedi that Grievous had killed. And the main Jedi character, he was supposed to be on that.
Yoshi is
Yoshi,
the Jedi character? I think so.
Yoshi. Which is... I forgot that was his name.
I mean, doesn't it look like it's not Star Wars? Like, obviously you got the lightsaber, but it looks like it could be a cartoon from something else. I don't know.
I thought about this, and I would say that it is the Nintendo version of Star Wars. The guy's name's Yoshi. There's it kind of has this Legends of Zelda type visuals. And I've never played them, but I can see it and go, the marketing for Legends of Zelda and this kind of, it's like Link with a lightsaber. It's a very basic story. Do you want to dive into that one first?
Yeah, we can do that.
Let me try to find it.
So, script by Doug Petrie. I don't know if he's not a name I recognize. I wonder if he's written anything else. Because Tim Truman did a lot of the story writing in Republic around this time.
He did Outlander, and did he do
Emissaries of Malastare? I think. I think some of the Quinlan Voss stuff too.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is issue 27, not 47.
47, we'd get into the Republic, the Clone Wars stuff.
We do. Let's see.
But you're right. I definitely see with the blonde hair, this Yoshi, who, as we see him, he's just been promoted from Padawan to Jedi Knight. And this is his first mission, but you could definitely see the resemblance to. I've never played Zelda, but I think Link is the main character.
Yes.
And then the woman character is kind of like an elf. See her a little bit there. I don't know if that's Zelda or in the Nintendo version or what, but
I believe that She is the princess of it. Um,
And she is a princess in the story, I believe.
yes,
So,
that is correct.
so the parallels are all there.
Sorry. The Marvel Unlimited is difficult when it's on a browser.
Yoshi Ralph Alan, once
Ralph
a
Alan.
Padawan, now a newly christened Jedi Knight. He's young, eager, and he's under attack.
Oh.
Yeah. That's the first page. That's the intro to this story.
Yes.
And if you were looking for Quinlan Voss, you'd be disappointed. You'd be like, "What is this?" If you're picking up this issue for the first time.
My goodness. I think the original version also says one shot, which was a reason that I read it. It was probably one of the first Republic comic, like the early Republic comic that I read. I read Prelude to Rebellion. I think I had this one. I had a few, and it, I'd be missing one of them, and so I didn't want to read it until then. But Brendan's in the chat.
Yeah, I got the glasses on for reading because last time I was trying to read in contacts, and that was not working for me.
Brendan really likes the Voss arc. I didn't know you liked Quinlan Voss that much.
Yeah, you never would have guessed because that's his profile picture and his YouTube name. So
yep,
you learn something new every day. So
while I'm getting this up, how did you get into the Republic comics?
So that was the first mainline Dark Horse Star Wars series that had come out, and it started, like I said, before Episode 1 came out. I guess you could kind of consider like Tales of the Jedi and X-Wing Rogue Squadron mainline comic runs, but this one was the real like mainline. It was just called Star Wars initially. Later it would adopt the Republic kind of title, but it started even before Episode 1, and we didn't have a real good basis of any of the characters from Episode 1 at that point. So the fact that they used Ki-Adi-Mundi and gave us some background, he wasn't really featured in the movie at all. So I don't know how valuable that was in terms of like journey to Episode 1, like some of the other media where we learned about Qui-Gon Jinn and some of the stuff later.
Right.
It was kind of a throwaway comic that didn't really reference anything in the movie other than featured this character. But then when we got to Outlander, which again featured Aura Singh, who has no lines in the film, but is just blink and you miss her. She's in there. She was quite a compelling character in that. And I really liked A. Sherrod Head and Sherrod Head. And it told us a little bit more about, the Tusken Raiders, and it was very familiar. It was on Tatooine. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of digging this. And after that story kind of came out, that was one of my favorites. It wasn't up in terms of like Tales of the Jedi epic story, but it was close. I was like, I like where they're going with this. And then we got a little bit of Asherard Het in Emissaries of to Malastare, which okay, I mean that was okay, that was not Tatooine. It wasn't like the Tusken Raider culture that we got in Outlander, but he was kind of coming into his own as a Jedi. And is Anakin in that one? I forget.
Yes, he is in.
Okay.
He shows up, I think, in the beginning. They ended the first issue.
Yeah,
they're talking about how they couldn't sleep because of, I believe, all the noise.
Yeah, so that one was okay, but after that, like I said, the Quinlan Voss arc with Ayla, I wasn't too invested in that. And there were two real comics that I remember coming out around that time. We had Tales, and then we had the Star Wars mainline series, later to be called Republic. So I mean, those were your only choices. So you picked up what you could at that point. You could, like, beggars couldn't be choosers. And I know Matt Wilkins hates Tales and gives that a bad rap, but you have to remember, around that time, your choices were very limited, and you took what you could. Like, if you saw a new Star Wars comic on the shelf at Walden Books, at the mall or wherever you got your comics, you bought it.
Right. Yeah. I found it here.
So Brennan is saying Doug Petrie co-wrote Clone Wars episode.
Really?
Like a Filoni Clone Wars episode. That's the only EU writing he did other than this issue. Which one? If you know, Brennan. Was it a good Clone Wars episode?
It was Death Trap. That was the Boba Fett one where he tries to assassinate Mace Windu. He co-wrote on that one. Or, yeah. That's interesting. It's interesting they get a EU writer to write a storyline that contradicts the EU.
And quite a few years later, too. That probably was at least 7 or 8 years later. So,
yeah. And he just wrote it was that episode. Interesting. I wonder how many other very Zelda inspired.
The art style looks like Star Wars Tales too. That's another thing I should mention. I'm pretty sure the artist, who is pencils, is Randy Green, inks by Andy Owens, colors by Dave McCagg. I think this team did at least some work on Star Wars Tales, because it's very distinctive. The characters are sort of drawn the same way.
Right. And they were coming out at the same time, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's hard because I got into it after they had rebooted, and so it's just like, for me, they all came at once.
Right.
Whatever I could find in the quarter or 50-cent bin, which now they're like, the owner of the shop I go to, he would just be like, oh yeah, that's a quarter. Yeah, that's fine. 50 cents. Let's, Then he saw me later and he was like, I wish I didn't sell you all of those for that much. And then he'd sell it to me for, like, some of them $10, a comic. And I'm like, ugh. Yeah.
There's some of them, like the first appearance of Dirge, the first appearance of Asajj Ventress, like, those are collector's items now. And who would have thought? Because all of these were in long boxes for years and years and years.
Right.
And after like 2020, around 2021, they started taking all those out and presenting them on a display shelf, and, like you said, selling them for $10-12 each in a lot of cases. So it's quite the shock. I don't know if it's still that way now. I know the Clone Wars Digest comics, which a couple years ago went for $150-200 so some of them did. Now they're back down to $5-10. So
oh wow,
there's quite a bit of fluctuation. I'm not sure the cause of all that. Maybe some people know something that we don't know as far as those being reprinted, but the market's just crashed in a lot of cases for EU material. But I guess it just kind of goes with the territory in the general category of Star Wars, given some of the backlash we've seen recently with some of the TV shows.
Yeah. You don't watch any of them, do you?
No.
Okay. So I think I sent it to you, and a couple other guys, but my wife and I wanted something to watch while we fell asleep to take a nap. Well, it kept our attention enough. Oh, it's rough. Oh man.
Yeah, I
But
saw some of Andor, and Andor was, I guess, okay as a
and
TV
yeah.
show. I don't know how well it holds up as a Star Wars TV show, but
So I actually really liked Andor, and that's usually my arguing point. If anyone says all of Disney Star Wars is trash, it's like, well, except for Andor. But it was pretty competently written. A lot of the things made sense. It was a slow burn, so a lot of people got bored by it. And then it actually fits, I think, pretty well into the expanded universe. Better than not most, better than some of the stuff that we have. Um, Joe Bongiorno wrote an article, I think, about how Rogue One fits into the EU. I don't know if you've read that,
no.
but
I did.
I was emailing him, and he had said that Andor fits in pretty well with that the way he explains that.
The only thing I don't think lines up too well is the Mon Mothma stuff.
Okay.
That doesn't seem like her family and what she's doing. Like Mon Mothma's family, I think is established pretty well in the EU. So unless she's going off of like aliases or something like that, I don't think it holds up. But yes, you're right. Joe did a very excellent job in explaining how Rogue One, which I did like Rogue One. That was a fun movie.
Right.
You can kind of there's some stuff with like the radio drama where it kind of butts up against Leia's mission to Top Wara. But if you could say Scarif is Top Wara,
right.
Maybe it's another name, you could kind of mesh it together. And I think Joe did the same thing with the Solo movie as well.
He
did trying to fit that in with Paradise Snare.
Yes, one of the things that he came up against, because he said most of it fit. The only issue was the winning of the Millennium Falcon, because in the movie
it has to take place on Cloud City, and in the movie it's not specifically on Cloud City, but you could. Right. I think he argued that you could kind of say, oh, there was a room on Cloud City kind of made out to look like what you saw in the film.
Yeah. I thought it could have just been a different time he won it back, because he gambles it off later in Jedi Academy, and then he wins it back again. Could have been just one of those things. But
yeah, that's true too.
Which that movie it's entertaining, but it's definitely a little.
Yeah, I didn't like that one as much as Rogue One, but I was just fascinated. I'm not big on mixing canon, but Joe is an absolute genius in trying to make that happen. And he like changed the chapter order in the Death Star novel by Steve Perry, because I read Death Star and I was like, there's no way you can make this work chronologically with Rogue One. But he's like, yeah, if you read this chapter first and then you go back to the previous chapter, it does work. And I'm like, holy cow, he's right. So I don't know how. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I've not read Death Star. I've read, I think, a few chapters of it, and then usually how I read, like I read until something sticks, and then I hyperfixate, and then I go back to my jumping around. But I heard some of the chapters don't even work within the book. I don't know.
There's some unresolved terrorist plot point that, if it is resolved, I missed it, because there's a fleet that gets attacked. There's like a Star Destroyer that gets sabotaged, and then there's some sabotage or some saboteurs going around on the Death Star, and that's never fully explained as far as I could tell. It's a good story, and it's actually a pretty quick read because the chapters are very short, but there's some weird stuff in there. There's like a trade federation. This isn't like a huge spoiler, but there's like a trade federation capital ship that attacks the Death Star, and it's Alliance affiliated. and there's like 500 X-wings that attack the Death Star, and it's like, where does the Alliance get 500 X-wings? I was like, I guess it could be true, but it doesn't seem to like match the spirit of the era, I guess.
Huh. I gotta read this book. Do I have to read anything before?
No. And in fact, the purpose of Death Star was to tie all these references about who worked on the Death Star and the origins. There's a lot of different stories, like going all the way back from West End Games, and there's like a Death Star companion or technical manual or something. So there's all these origins and all these people that worked on the Death Star, but and like what's the Death Star's first target? What did it blow up first? That sort of thing. It sort of straightens that out in one story. It holds up on its own too, not just as a retcon story. It is a good story. The characters really don't appear anywhere else because everybody kind of dies, unfortunately.
So it is Rogue One. No.
I don't know if everybody dies, but you know, they work on the Death Star, so you can only imagine what's going to happen to them.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like it ends with the Battle of Yavin, right?
Yeah. In fact, a lot of it, they just rewrite the narrative to A New Hope.
Oh, really?
That's maybe I don't know, 15 to 20% of the novel.
Well, that might make it something quick to go through. You said the chapters were shorter.
Yes.
Let's see. Brendan said, "Yeah, that's weird that they brought that writer back. Mon Mothma's stuff does seem pretty inconsistent in trying to mash the Rogue One verse into the EU." Okay. Yeah, Joe is a mad genius. Death Star is an underrated novel. I'll have to put that on my summer reading list. I think I'm all out of comics. I think I've got a few that I found that I hadn't read yet. Some of the digest, the Clone Wars digest, and then Honor and Duty. But whenever I go on vacation, I'll have to read Death Star.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to StarCrash, let me pull it up here. Share.
So there's no opening crawl on mine. I'm reading it from the omnibus version. So I have mine. I don't think that this was collected. There was a couple Republic comic series in this comic line that didn't get their own trade paperback initially. Infinity's End was one of them. I was always I couldn't read that story because I didn't have all the comics.
Really?
It was very frustrating. So it wasn't until the omnibus came out that I got that, and I don't think it's in this one, but there's a couple of them, and then StarCrash was another one, unfortunately.
All right. So the book opens with Yoshi's ship being under attack by these fighters. He is a new Jedi Knight, and he's eager for things, for adventure. All those different things. And so we're just thrown into the story. Like Scott said, no opening crawl. And then he tries to evade the attack, but then ends up crash landing on this planet with his lightsaber damaged. Was there anything that stood out to you in this opening here?
No, this was your generic eager young Jedi.
Right.
He's interestingly, he acts a lot like Anakin in Episode 2, at least at the beginning of it. Kind of has the same mentality, the same attitude towards everything, and he's about the same age too. So I don't know how much of Episode 2 that they had access to when they wrote this. I mean, it was 2001, so you'd think they'd have at least something. But it seems like he's a little too old to become a Jedi for the first time. I don't know.
Do you think he's too old to be just knighted?
Maybe, because you think he's about 17, 18 in this story.
Right.
which is about Anakin's age, more or less.
At least, yeah, it would be.
And we're told that Anakin, I know he was discovered late. He started training late. Right. But I would think that based on his training, he would also be knighted later.
Right. When is there, thinking about it, is there an age that usually Jedi Knights, if they're brought to the temple as an infant, that they're knighted after being a Padawan? Because Obi-Wan seems to be a bit older as well before he's knighted. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Because he is a Padawan in Episode 1. I never really thought about that. So, right. Maybe not. Maybe this is a little bit more accurate. I just kind of thought, okay, if they're brought to the academy when they're young, I mean, surely it can't be like 20 years of training. Like that's pretty freaking brutal.
Because how old was Obi-Wan in the Jedi Apprentice series? I know he had his birthday in the third book. Maybe he turned 12.
That sounds right.
Okay. Because, they're trying to reach the age of the reader. And I think those are for about, middle school. But
yeah, and I guess there's a period before you become a Padawan. I don't know what you'd call a trainee or something, but
would it be like youngling?
Yeah.
Okay, because like youngling then Padawan, which Anakin kind of skipped the youngling period. And just went straight to Padawan. So I guess he would have been knighted about this normal time anyone else would be.
Maybe.
Was he... I don't know. His age for his knighting is kind of, convoluted because of TCW and different things. But he was 19 whenever he was knighted. According to, I guess it would be the TCW tie-in novels, because it was
right. Yeah,
3 months.
If he's 9, I think he's 9 in Episode 1. That's yes. 32 BBY. So yeah, you just do the math on that. But
right, yeah. But anyway, there's like you said, there's a lot of resemblance to Anakin in Episode 2. He's eager for adventure. He's ends up crashing his ship. He breaks his lightsaber. Sounds like the perfect setup for an Anakin character. Still can't get past his name being Yoshi though. He finds a village. Actually, it's more of a city. And so he ends up finding these battle droids. They're referred to in here. Not the B-1 battle droids that we see from the Trade Federation from the movies, but these other types of battle droids. He's able to fight off these droids and reprogram them, even without his lightsaber. So he's got the technical skill that most Jedi have. Yeah,
they kind of look like Halo soldiers a little bit,
like
the battle droids.
Yeah. There's a lot of other video games depicted in here. Is there any part of this opening that stood out to you?
Not too much. Like this story, even though I read this a couple days ago, it's not really memorable. And part of that might be attributable to the fact that it's just a one shot and you don't really care about these characters again. But I mean, even when I read the single issue for the first time, I wasn't really identifying with it too much, because the bad guy is just like a frog kind of character. Yes. It's just a little bit silly. There's a butler that kind of flies around. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a Tales type of story here, but it's in the mainline Republic
sure.
comic series. So yeah, we see that Yoshi sees a castle, but it's really only like 3 stories tall. Like it's not. You'd think a princess would live in a bigger structure there.
He
I
had to
can't
be able to
believe.
get in.
Yeah, I can't believe these droids from this place, so old, so beautiful. Well, I won't solve any mysteries sticking around here. So he decides to scale the castle, and he gets to the princess. Well, I guess he doesn't know the room he's entering in, but
Nope.
she's like getting dressed or something, and she says, "Who are you?" Well, it's a funny story actually, and she points a gun at him,
Right.
and he says, "Don't shoot," and she shoots anyway. Little trigger happy there, and breaks one of the battle droids behind him, kind of saves his life.
Yeah. Before you continue, I'd like to introduce Brendan Quinlan Voss, who is here.
Oh, hey,
able
Brennan.
to join us.
Howdy, guys. How's it
Glad
going?
you could make it.
Thank you for having me. Sorry I'm late.
No,
as
you're
always.
good. I was late too. What, Brendan? What do you think of this? Kind of the start of this comic, and some of the backstory that we were talking about. Is there anything you'd like to?
StarCrash is such an oddball, isn't it?
Yes.
It's it's quite literally like isolated on a hill for the Republic series. It's quite possibly the definition of a filler issue. You know what I mean? It's just like we're never gonna see any of this again. And I thought it was interesting speculation, Brady, that maybe they were just throwing stuff at a wall to see what stuck, and
Right.
maybe they were gonna run with this if people liked it. But like, I just feel like they realized, oh shoot, we don't have someone slotted in for next week's release, and they quickly phoned a random dude and got this made real quick because it's so weird. The start, like Scott said, is very Tales. This feels like a very like, and it doesn't feel like it needs to be a whole issue either. It feels like it should only be like a 10-page Tales comic issue. You know, it's so strange. Everything about it is just generic and weird and forgettable. And for some reason, that makes it very endearing to me. Like, this is, it makes me kind of like it. Is that kind of weird?
Me
I don't
too.
know.
It reminds me of like the Nomad series. It's really just the length of one
Right.
comic book. It's almost like they had this idea for Tales to split it up, and then they were like, well, let's just put it there.
It could be.
It's a tale story gone awry.
Yeah. Or
Could
even
be.
they took this could have been a pilot, a potential pilot for the series of itself, of the Republic series. I mean, this could have been anywhere, really. Also, it could have taken place anywhere. There's nothing that centers it to
True.
after Phantom Menace. This could be one of Luke's Jedi. This could be someone from Tales of the Jedi. Like, there's nothing that holds this in that I'm
like,
aware of.
I feel like this is probably set like decades before Phantom Menace. You know what I mean? In like the peaceful era where Jedi are so bored that they can go and like just crash on a random planet to find an adventure because there's nothing else going on.
Right.
It feels like it could go there. I like the idea of what Scott says. Like, maybe this was early drafts for a Tales issue, but then the people who were working on the Republic comic were like, oh crap, we're not ready for our next arc yet, and we have a slot to fill. So they're like, could you add a couple pages to your Tales release? And then they threw it in stores as part of Republic. I think that might actually be, like, all kidding aside, a likely explanation for how this got made, because it's almost unfathomable to me that that this exists. When I first read this, because much like you, Brady, I was reading through the like white cover, I think you were saying, like Clone Wars volumes, and then through the graphic novels. So I completely missed this. So I read this with someone on a Discord call for the first time. I think it was Slav and Titus were like, do you remember that anime or that anime Republic issue? And I was like, what? and they showed it to me, and I was like, "This is real." I was so confused the whole time. I thought I was reading like a fan done comic. It was so strange, a visceral experience. It just is so weird. It's so strange that this exists.
It's the Legends of Zelda. It's the Legends of Star Wars. Um,
There's
but
there's also an Anakin Tales comic that comes out after episode 2 that's very similar to this. It's like the same situation where Anakin kind of goes into a castle, and I don't know if it's a princess, but there's like a bunch of ladies that like steal his lightsaber.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a similar situation too.
yes, it is.
And I always felt that comic storyline was then lifted for Filoni's Clone Wars, because there was a big deal about like the lightsaber lost.
yeah.
And then Ahsoka, there's a whole episode called like Lightsaber Lost. So it's really interesting. But what's interesting about this, like we talked about, what's his name, Doug Petrie, who wrote this in 2001, I think you guys said.
Yes.
So
Right.
the fact that 8-9 years later they bring him back for like season 2 or 3 of the Clone Wars to pen an episode, to co-pen an episode, is weird. Plus, that wasn't a standalone episode. That was the start of an arc.
Right.
So he didn't co-write the rest of that arc. He only co-wrote episode 1. So it's like, why did they bring him back to just co-write the start of a storyline, but not the end? It's just,
so
is this guy a pen name? Because it's just raising red flags everywhere.
it is Dave Filoni's pen name.
I think we're dealing with Alex Wheeler here.
I think it's Dave Filoni's pen name. You see, he started it from the beginning.
So it says he worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and CSI. So Buffy was a Dark Horse property. I'm not sure if it still is, but it was for a long time, especially during this era when this was written. So it's possible they got some talent from another property and just moved him to this one because he wanted to write Star Wars. That could be the case.
Possibly.
Yeah, interesting. One thing that's interesting is if he had wanted to write Star Wars and been like, "Can I write a Star Wars issue?" He wrote the most non-Star Wars issue I think I've ever read. You know what I mean? Like very little makes this feel like Star Wars. Like it's just like a knight going into a castle. you
Right.
know? So there's very little Star Wars in here other than the title and then like the lightsaber. I think that's it. Maybe he talks about the Force and says he's a Jedi, but like
I mean, there's spaceships. It starts with a crash. That's why it's entitled StarCrash. So I mean, it's there's some
true
Star Wars element there.
Now, what's interesting is StarCrash is a Star Wars ripoff movie as well, starring David Hasselhoff.
Oh, really?
From the 80s. I'm going to be reviewing that on my channel with a panel soon. We're calling it Star Wars. So like Luke Skywalker, because it's a clone of Star Wars. And that movie is a trip. But it's also called StarCrash. So it's a really funny coincidence that there's a Star Wars ripoff called StarCrash. And then there's an issue of like a fantasy story masquerading as sci-fi, also called StarCrash. It's just, there's so many funny little nuggets that go along with this story.
Are you going to be reviewing Turkish Star Wars?
It's on the list. It is on the list. We've got Rebel Moon on there too.
Oh my god!
I think this is the first time I've publicly talked about it, but we've got like 12 or 13 films. We've got one from the Asylum, who are known for Sharknado, called Battlestar Wars. I think it's called Battlestar: Wars. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about down the line.
Oh no!
With that, yeah.
You should. There's a show called The Acolyte. You should review that.
What's that?
That's a Star Wars ripoff.
I blocked all. I blocked all like mentions of that on my feed, or I tried to.
I need to like the amount. It's a bad show. Okay, but it's not as bad as people say it is.
I heard some people say it was worse than the sequel trilogy.
No. Oh my gosh, no.
I mean, the costuming might have been worse. I saw some stills.
honestly, like, it is a great looking
Oh, really? Okay.
great looking show. There's some things in the props department, like the lightsabers look more like they look realistic, but they look more like what you would get at Galaxy's Edge. Like, they took the cast of Galaxy's Edge, made
They
their
look
lightsabers,
more
and
like
then
a
made
cosplay.
a little bit, just a little bit. They're more bulkier, but I think they were trying to be like, see, this was hundreds of years ago, you know.
I saw people saying the Jedi costumes looked like Spirit Halloween costumes, and I couldn't
Hey.
unsee it after someone said that.
Hey, they got to save money somewhere, so costs need to be made.
I mean,
cuts need to be made.
we can ignore that it costs like $168 million. That was all on the talent they got to write the show. You know, they didn't have anything left for costuming.
They should have gotten the Andor guy to do it, because there's so much potential. Like, the thing that really made me go and watch it, aside from needing something to fall asleep to, was
what a great review.
was the I wanted to see the guy who was playing the main Jedi, because the guy learned English in order to play
He was
that
a Squid
character.
Games guy, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Okay,
he was.
I heard that.
And
That's
he
weird.
learned English because he loved Qui-Gon Jinn so much, and he wanted to be. And I was like, that's
kind of wholesome.
Yeah, I'm like, that's awesome. I might fall asleep while watching it, but I'll put it on.
His first words in English were "Republic credits will do fine."
But
maybe his first words were, "The ability to speak does not make you intelligent." That's another good one.
But yeah, the show, there's a lot of dumb things, but
I'd rather read StarCrash, if I'm being honest.
I mean, me too. I'd probably rather read StarCrash than a bunch of other things too. But anyway, going back to the comic, there was a droid that flew in. She ended up shooting it instead of him. And then there's a lot of just info dump in this, which it's kind of fast paced, so it goes by pretty quickly. And so she explains that it's not loading here. Goodness. Ugh.
There's a prophecy. So
yes.
I knew you crashed here for a reason. Lady, I think you found your foreseen guy. So there's, I guess, somebody that's been foretold to save their people. At least he assumes that. And then she's not too happy with him. There's a butler. He kind of looks like a bug, but he's got a tuxedo
Doesn't he have
on.
Antenna or something like
yes.
that?
Yeah, he's got a tuxedo and he kind of flies around. I remind your highness that the engagement ball will begin soon. And who is this smelly humanoid? So I guess there's a dinner or a dance or something, and the Jedi is going to take this princess to the ball.
There we go. All right.
So what's interesting about this is, do you guys get the impression, I could be off base with this, but when I was reading it, I got the impression that like the planet he crash landed on didn't have too much contact with the outside galaxy, was the impression that I got. Yet there's multiple species on the planet. Bug guy, pink elf lady. So what's up with that? And then the slug villain as well.
Yeah, I think we've seen that a little bit in the Marvel comics, where I think they crash land on some planets that don't have any outside contact, and because he crash landed, like I don't think they've ever seen a starship before. So,
right,
it's funny, they do have battle droid technology, or at least somebody does, because the frog guy, I guess, is in control of the planet. But that's it.
I think my theory here is that there was these species of elf-like people that lived here, but then there was a ship that crashed with technology, and it mutated all the wildlife. So you have butler fly, you have crime lord frog, and all
Yeah.
kinds of guys, and they become smart. I don't know.
I mean, I like it. It reminds me of, I grew up on the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show, and
Okay.
I will maintain that show is really good. I like it a lot. And in that, there's ooze that mutates everything, and it made me think of that because there's aliens that just drop green vials of ooze everywhere. And it hits like a pizza man, and he turns into a pizza monster. Hits a fly, he turns into a flying monster. So like, it reminded me instantly of that. It's just mutation via weird stuff dropping out of an alien ship in the sky. That's
Right.
not terrible as a storyline.
Yeah.
Can be cool.
That could work. Trying to think of anything that would cause ooze to fall on this planet and make Butler fly.
Rhoda the Huttlet flew by.
There we go. This is a result of the TCW retcon.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
It did so many things. It also mutated Quinlan Voss into a surfer bro. So,
That's what happened.
It can do a lot.
This is the splitting point.
Yeah. And that's why Quinlan's not in this issue. He was getting mutated to become a surfer way later on in the timeline.
In the issues before this, we haven't covered it on the show yet, but it's very similar to the plot of this. Quinlan Voss crash lands on Dathomir.
He does.
Gets enslaved as a servant, has to help,
free the locals, right?
Free the locals, yeah.
Yeah.
And then isn't he seen as their chosen one as well?
They hail him as a hero and stuff like that. Yeah.
Spoilers for their
It's like Doug Petrie came in and was like, what can I write that's Star Wars? And he had like a manga beside him, a copy of Zelda on top of that, and then the last issue of the Republic series, and was like, all right, got a story.
All right.
And that's interesting because Dathomir, they tend to look down on men on that planet. Like that's part of the lore of that planet. So maybe they figure since Quinlan Voss has long hair, maybe they considered him a woman or something. I don't know.
That's a brilliant retcon for sure.
There we go. All right. So he ends up taking her to this banquet. What is his name? The Frog Lord.
Garoth.
And so Garoth has arranged a marriage with the princess and himself, so that both of their empires that they've built can become one. And she doesn't like it.
As you tend to do in an arranged marriage.
Right, of course. And so
she's actually not she actually kind of goes along with it.
Right. Yeah.
So she's stoic regarding it then.
Yeah.
It's for the people type of deal.
Right. And Yoshi, being the
little green dinosaur dude.
Yes. Being the Anakin type character he is, decides to say, I am not her servant. I am her husband. And so, what was his name again? Goroth?
Goroth, yeah.
Goroth decides to tackle him and
is that saliva out of his mouth too?
Most likely.
We're seeing he's a hungry boy. It's past dinner.
That's what it is. So my theory is that this guy grew off of one of the decapitated frogs that Jabba has ate during the pod race.
Oh, true.
He's the one that hit the gong to start the race. His head rolled.
He's that one. Exactly.
He fell in some ooze. Grew back.
Yeah, of course.
Got some
And so
droids.
now we know where this firmly takes place in the continuity.
There we go.
After
That's how we
Phantom
know.
Menace, because of that.
Because of the ooze.
Yes.
Well, see, before the frog was eaten, he stuck his tongue out like most frogs do to catch a fly. That's where we get butler fly.
The little butler. Brady.
I love. Can we just appreciate his white gloves? Like I love the fly's gloves on the next page.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
He's he's in style, of course.
He's got the drip.
Yeah. Wait, go to the next. Yeah,
there we go.
He's got the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse gloves.
Oh my gosh. There we
Bringing Jedi Mickey into this, of course. So
there we go.
There you go. More connections. Brady, you were operating on an entirely different plane there for a minute. You were just spitting. That was all making so much sense to me.
He's dropping the ooze, you see.
Yeah, there's the ooze, the saliva in his mouth. You know, the fly butler was because the frog ate a fly before Jabba ripped his head off and threw him against the gong.
They fall into the ooze. Does Jabba smoke the ooze? That might be
maybe.
Yeah, so it's like tobacco, you know. He's like,
it's
this guy's like chewing tobacco, and he's got
eating
a
frogs.
cigar too.
So they're just fighting, going to town and everything. But Butler Fly is like, hey guys, so we are going to have a classic duel of suitors for the princess's hand.
I'm so glad he knows the law.
Yeah, he knows the lore. So he goes, oh wait, this is adding to my theory that the author of this is just a pen name for Dave Filoni, because he has the duel here just like Darth Maul and Pre Vizsla.
Oh, true.
There we go, connection.
So is Yoshi Maul or Vizsla?
I would say he has to be Darth Maul. He just came up showing who's boss. He's like, hey. But there's an exception to this rule. It has to be living organisms. It can be a robot could come in and fight. Well, guess what? Our Frog Lord here calls in his mech.
From the cover.
From the cover, yes.
This gives me like Power Rangers vibes.
The Megazord walks in.
I mean, it's truly stunning. I wanted to ask, on the last panel, he looks very, very Huttese. What species do you think this guy is in the lore? Like, is he a species that's a relative of the Hutts, or is he a mutated Hutt, or something different?
See, he was spit out of a Hutt's mouth. The ooze got on him, so maybe there was saliva that crossed it.
So he's got some Hutt DNA.
Yeah, I think Brady's description is accurate, but before I heard Brady's description, I was thinking like halfway between a Hutt and a Rabbit. He's kind of like got the more cool vibes there, kind of green color.
For sure. Now, what's interesting is, do y'all remember the Jabba Dark Horse comics from like way back in the 90s? Yeah. Those are a trip to read. We should review those sometimes. But
when we review those,
the Hunger of Princess Nampi.
Oh my
god, Nampi is nearly a Hutt, but not. I was just thinking Nampi might look a little bit like Goroth. Maybe a connection. The Hunger of Goroth.
Right. I mean, they're both very hungry.
Princess Nampi's a princess, and she's purplish, if I recall. So maybe the offspring of Goroth and the pink pointy-eared princess here.
Okay, so our Frog Lord here is a Yank Chosh.
Oh, there is a species given.
Yes. And
Okay.
they are a slug-like species from the planet Exla in Hut space.
Did they appear in anything else?
They are believed to be directly related to the Huts.
Makes sense.
There's, they've got 6 arms, 6 thick arms. I had to clarify that. Then,
Wait, how's his name spelled?
I don't remember. Let me pull it up.
GAR-OTH.
Oh, Garoth. Okay.
So they only appear in this.
Yak-Tosh. I forgot about this species.
They actually appear in a few different source books.
Okay.
So, like the Lords of Nalhutta, it appears in that.
Right.
source.
I have that source book, actually.
The Complete Encyclopedia, of course. The Essential Atlas, they're referenced there.
I'm going to look for where the Yak-Tosh appear in this now. Very interesting.
See if we have any artwork in there.
Yeah, I'll check for that. It was also in the official fact file, which identified one of their species members, it says on the Wook, which is very interesting. So glad. See, the EU is great that it would continue to bring these concepts back, because how easy would it have been for this alien to never be mentioned again? But like for their source books, like establish that connection to the Huts, because I don't think there's a connection made here other than Brady realizing that it's a frog that got spat out.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to play as one of these species in their RPG adventure? I mean, I sure would.
I know whenever I get to play a Star Wars RPG, I'm a Yak-Tosh baby, you know.
Yak-Tosh. Let's see.
And how about his Megazord is called Goliath? I mean, that's original, right? But it's
gonna get there.
A little bit too close to his name, which is Goroth. So you got Goliath and Goroth. I don't know, a little bit.
Do you think when he touched the ooze, he got the knowledge of the Old Testament?
Could be.
Makes sense.
Maybe.
Makes sense.
Does I've not read Supernatural Encounters. Is there a connection?
Is Goliath in Supernatural Encounters?
It's Goliath.
I don't remember him being in there, but
severed head.
What I've been thinking about this whole thing is one thing that stuck out to me is they established that all pointy-eared aliens have the same shared ancestor. So this pointy-eared purple lady probably shares a common ancestor with some other pointy-eared species. So she's likely the offspring of human and Cephi. Cephi, I think, were given as the original pointy-eared race. So she's likely an offspring of them, her species at least.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know how I expected to find Yak-Tosh in this source book so quickly. I'm just flipping through here. It would be nice if I could like Command F search a term, but I cannot. So
Man.
I'm just scanning this thing for where our beloved Yak-Tosh will show up.
The Fantasy Flight guides aren't on StarWarsTimeline.net, are they?
No, not currently.
Well, do you guys have anything else to say before we move on?
No.
All right. So they fight the Goliath. And there's a little bit of dialogue about Yoshi is asking the princess if she knows how to fight. Turns out her dad, it was like a sword master. And so she is able to get past the guards, get a sword, trying to be avoided by being choked out by our frog lord. And
Frog Lord of the Sith.
A frog lord?
A frog lord?
It seems like he grows bigger too.
Yeah, inconsistent scale. I noticed that too.
It's the ooze, guys.
It
He might be radioactive. Yeah.
And his droid, his Megazord thing, Goliath obeys my telepathic commands alone. So he's not a droid. He's commanded telepathically.
I feel like that would break their little law here. Do you think? I don't know. No, probably
Maybe
not.
he's force sensitive.
Ooh.
They are able to be immune to the Jedi mind trick. I mean, we see that. I think we see
He's
that.
a Toydarian. Mind tricks don't work on him.
Only money. There's a little bit of dialogue here. Yoshi is up on the Goliath, hiding, and he says he's killing the princess. He thinks this. He's killing the princess. But if I stop to help her, the Goliath will kill us all. What?
So I guess he's just holding off the robot on his own.
He's like, if I do that, she's gonna die. But if I help her, then we're all gonna die. So I'm just gonna not die. Okay, very, very stoic. Oh man! But then Professor Fly pulls out his guns to stop the guards who are trying to kill the princess. So this is what they should have based the sequels. No. This is what the Acolyte should have been. Start off, the start.
Hey, it would have been better.
Probably.
Hey, at least what's this guy's name?
Yoshi?
No, the writer of this again. I forgot his name.
Dave Filoni? No.
I forgot his actual name.
Doug Petrie.
At least Doug Petrie's an actual writer and not a 3-year-old child punching keys.
So
wait. I'm feeling kind of angry for some reason tonight.
Oh man.
Can step back and just analyze the storytelling here. So this slug frog thing, the
Yaktosh, yeah,
Lord Gorath, he was just going to marry this pointy-eared princess, and now he's just going to kill her, or have one of his droids kill her. Permission to deliver the killing stroke, my lord. I mean, how is he going to change his plan so quickly? That seems like
another purple, pink, pointy-eared princess will just come along. They just drop out of the sky.
Just get into his brain.
They're a dime a dozen. He it's. He just changes up his plans like halfway through.
There's a princess in another castle.
They were going to give Doug Petrie a 6-issue series, but they figured out he has only 2 pages to go, so he's got to wrap up the story.
True.
All right.
Doug Petrie, what a guy. The guy was a wizard with the pen.
Oh man. Let's see, why isn't it loading?
So since Yoshi wasn't going to save the princess,
she saves herself.
No, actually, the butler saves her. Yeah, because the droids were going to attack her. She does kill the Gorath.
Oh yes, he does.
But the butler actually saves her too. So
yes, permission to have the killing stroke, my lord.
The way you read that in a southern accent sounded way funnier.
They need to get the voice actor of Alfred to do him, but also I'm getting this vibe that this is like Princess Peach, and that's just Toad.
Every time Michael I think of Toad now, I think of Keegan-Michael Key. That's so funny. Oh my goodness. Man, it is not as easy to find the Yaktosh in the source book as I thought it would be.
No, he's such a prominent character.
I thought their name would I thought they'd have a whole page.
She reminds the audience, as my father taught me.
Yeah, a tell don't show moment.
your father taught you just to carry a knife in your dress somewhere.
Yes. Death
Okay.
is always ugly, princess. Not even your fair face can change that fact. I know, my lord.
So do we see a yellow lightsaber, or is that orange? I can't.
I
It's
think it's orange, right?
Yes, it is orange. Yeah. And then he finally gets it fixed by just getting parts from the Goliath, and then it blows up, and then yay!
So that Goliath thing went down pretty easily.
It did. And here's the thing too. He says the princess did her part. Now it's up to me. Up to you to do what? You've already got the Goliath where you can just rip it apart. But it's like it's connected telepathically. Okay.
Right. I guess okay. It self-destructs when the thing dies, but the Goliath kind of explodes General Grievous style with fire coming out of its eyes there.
This
that panel to the top right.
Yes.
This hut shell armor
there's artwork.
Really cool, doesn't it? Yeah, that's dope. It's giving me very much vibes of the Goliath in here. And on this page, it mentions the Yak Tosh as being relatives of huts.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yep,
is that picture? Is that drawing supposed to be a Yak Tosh?
I believe it's supposed to be a hut, but it's directly above the information on the Yak Tosh. There's also a Sakian in here. This is probably the most Sakian stuff that we've gotten since A New Hope. But yeah, this is dope. I wish. Oh, I'm big. Sorry, I didn't notice.
You're good.
But yeah, this thing's really cool. And also, we've got Captain Gideon in here. Sorry, this is an aside. Look, this is a guy named Captain Gideon. There's a Disney canon guy I was told named Captain Gideon, but this is a Captain Gideon in the EU first. So clearly, he was based on this Captain Gideon from Fantasy Flight Games. I'm sure. I don't know anything about the new Captain Gideon.
I don't know.
Sorry for that aside.
Vinny's the only Daveronian I care about.
Yeah, absolutely. I love me some Villy. But Scott, you said that Villy was too overused in the early issues.
He was like in every issue, like back to back.
We needed the whole
for me, but you have to remember, like from my perspective, like these came out, every month or so, or every
right.
3 weeks.
So you got sick of seeing him over and over again.
Yeah, it seemed like a long time for me. It's like, okay, all the pre-episode 1 stuff, and then the stuff shortly after episode 1. There was no classic era stories except Vader's Quest. Vader's Quest was like the only one,
right?
And I just
Vader's
got
Quest was not a great, not the best of those.
It was whatever, but it was like, okay, if you weren't a crazy fan of episode 1, there was nothing for you except New Jedi Order at that point. So like for me, and time kind of passes slower when you're young. So for me, it felt like it dragged a little bit.
Yeah. I would have stuck Villy in everything. I would have gone full Dave Filoni with Ahsoka. Villy's in Dawn of the Jedi, Tales of the Jedi, New Jedi Order. The Deveronian version. Imagine the Deveronian version of the fall of Coruscant during the Vong War. It would have been beautiful. Poetry. That's what I would have done with Villy. Now, all kidding aside, I do like Villy, but he does show up a lot. So I get that probably on a weekly, monthly basis, it would be like, why is this guy still here?
my first experience with him was the last Quinlan Voss arc in the Clone Wars.
The Order 66 stuff?
Yeah.
On Felucia? Yeah.
Yeah. Or was it Kashyyyk?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Kashyyyk.
Yeah.
Wrong planet name. Yeah, you're right.
Because didn't they have it where he was going to die on Felucia? Is that, or was it Kashyyyk?
No, I think it was always Kashyyyk. They had like a stop motion of him, and then George was like, "No, don't kill Quinlan.
We're gonna keep him alive."
Gonna put him in Underworld.
That's better, George. And can you say as George, "Hey Dave, can we keep him consistent with your version in TCW?" Dave, he's a surfer guy, right? I stopped reading the comics years ago.
That was before TCW ever came out. That was before
Yeah.
Dave Filoni was even hired. I imagine.
Yeah.
I think that's when they were in, because I think George wanted to hire Gindi to do animation stuff, from what I've heard.
You should have got the job, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you.
but he wanted to have creative freedom of other things, from what I've heard.
I heard somewhere, this is kind of a tangent, but Rick McCallum was talking about the score, like the music scores for Underworld. I think it was in one of the Insiders or whatever. And he's like, oh, yeah, we have all this music, all the tracks already written, in advance. We just have to shoot the episodes. Like, it seemed like they were really far along based on what he was saying. So maybe they have scripts, maybe they have music scores written, and that was reused in one of these like new Star Wars shows. I don't know, but
I think
it's possible.
I think it came out that they had like 100 scripts or something. Like George just went to town.
Back before The Mandalorian came out, a lot of people were saying that, like, back before they'd unveiled the title, it was like revealed that there was a Star Wars show focused on a gunslinger. So people were saying that was like Underworld repurposed on like the Reddit forums back when that was announced, right? So I don't know, because I always heard the discussion that Underworld became Mandalorian, but I don't know if there's any validity to that.
It must have became something, because they were definitely, according to the interviews, they had a lot of material written, both like music scores and scripts. They hadn't shot anything. I think there's that one like test shot that surfaced a couple years ago, but
looked really cool.
Oh my gosh, looks better than The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But
well, I don't know that. I've not watched
Mandalorian.
But I assume
Mandalorian looks good, but for what that clip was, I mean, it was expensive, and that's why they didn't make it. Yeah. But apparently there was a script. It was a 2-episode arc, and it was of Darth Vader going to the underworld of Coruscant. And it followed Vader doing something, I guess, hunting down crime bosses or something.
If Quinlan was supposed to be in it, like they were saying,
you
have to believe there would have been a Quinlan Vader fight sequence. And then maybe Quinlan could have said in the fight, could have confirmed that he did meet Han Solo in that story that was labeled non-canon, but that I firmly believe is canonical. Acolyte, or what's it called? Underworld. Underworld was made just to affirm that story has a place in continuity. I'm sure that was the sole reason.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do like that comic.
It's a good comic. Yeah. Is it called Ghost, I think?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, that comic made me so excited for what Quinlan we could have seen in the Underworld. Like, the graying dreadlocks look dope on the character. Like this older, wiser Quinlan. Oh, it would have been... You have to think, Quinlan killed so many people during the Clone Wars era, right? Sora Bulk, Tolskor. He racked up a kill list of these acolytes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think, he's a talented duelist. Like, he went toe to toe with Ventress and Obi-Wan during that Dreadnoughts arc. Like, he fought Mace and held his own for a time. So like, he's up there as a duelist. You have to think that a more mature Quinlan in Underworld could have gone toe to toe with Vader.
Mm-hmm.
And if George was keeping Quinlan alive in Revenge of the Sith for Underworld down the line, then, you have to think that would have been an integral part of the show, perhaps, a finale or something like that, building towards a duel. Would have been really dope.
Yeah.
Did he kill his master, Thulm? Or am I misremembering?
No, he almost did. Thulm like faked it. He like forced him off a cliff, and then Thulm was like, haha, gotcha. I had to pretend that I was dead so that you could make the decision on your own. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I tried to do a reread through the Clone Wars. I might finish that on vacation too. I don't know. Do you guys have anything to say about this comic before we move on to the next one? Because it just ends. They say bye.
I just like he says, yeah, first day of the job. She says, I thought Jedi were humble. Well, this guy's kind of arrogant.
Yeah.
He is Anakin then.
Yeah. But it just sort of ends. It wrapped up pretty quickly. It was kind of forgettable, but I guess you couldn't have it drag on anymore. I still maintain that this is a tale story that was a little bit too long, and they decided to give it its own issue. I think that's the theory I'm going with.
Solid theory. I described to that as well.
They kind of set it up where it could continue because she says to come back, and then he says later that he'll return. I just might be back, and then it ends.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I wouldn't have been opposed to revisiting it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
You know, even now, if they continue the EU, we need the sequel to StarCrash. Marvel issue 109, Return to StarCrash. Yeah, you know, StarCrash again.
He comes back and Rada the Hutt is ruling the planet.
Perfect. You're hired. That's still a better story than the sequel trilogy. So that sounds good to me.
Everything is.
You know, that story though, despite all the memes, it's not bad. It's not egregious. It's not terrible.
Right.
It's just fine. It's in and out for a filler adventure, and it's just weird, which makes it kind of fun to talk about.
We never know what happens to Zorba either. I'm just saying. There's a lot of possibilities there.
Now we're cooking with gas.
Zorba?
Yeah, Zorba gets spit out of the Sarlacc at the end of Jedi Prince.
Oh.
So he's out on the loose. He could be causing trouble on that planet.
Maybe he comes here. Maybe he runs into the ooze.
I bet he'll have his own Goliath and his dreadlocks will get caught in the machine. You know, he's like trying to rip the locks out as it's clamping up the Goliath.
Well, didn't Hutts used to have mech suits? I heard that.
Well, yeah, like in this Lords of Nalhada, they used to have like battle suits that they showed us in some source books. Yeah.
Do you think the Goliath is a remnant of that?
The suits that we saw tended to be like armor around them, not like making a new figure, but perhaps it could have been adapted.
So maybe, you know, the Hutts had these suits, but these
Yaktosh
were trying to develop a telepathic mech suit.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting exiled and ended up on this planet and built up his wealth.
Could be
more realistic than my decapitated ooze theory. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. I might have to pick up that book.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to hop off the stream. I was glad to make it for StarCrash, which is clearly a superior tale to Freedom Net Uprising.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me on, guys. It
no problem.
Awesome.
No problem. See ya.
I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye. All right. So, are you ready to hop into Freedom Net Uprising?
Let's do it.
All right. So, I do have to say, artwork, fantastic. Let's see if it'll load. Let me refresh.
So I'll just say, Freedom Net Uprising, a little bit of history here. This was a very difficult trade paperback to acquire back in the day. Like normally they made 6-issue series or 5-issue series. This one was only 2. So there was a trade paperback that had the collection, which was the saga of Nobi Sunrider, Eula Queldrama, and the Freedom Net Uprising together. But that was like the first printing, and then eventually they stopped printing it. So the only way to get it was either single issues, or if you could find this, which was very short printed, has original cover art here. Like this isn't the cover art for either of the issues. This was very hard to get. I didn't get it until post 2014. I got maybe 2016 or whatever. I don't know how valuable it is now, but that I was really happy to get that. But the most economical way to read it is probably the Epic Collection now.
Yes, for sure. What I want to do is whenever the Tales of the Jedi hardcover omnibus comes out, I want to get that so I can get all of Dawn of the Jedi and Tales of the Jedi. But I don't think that comes out till later this year, maybe.
I think that's right. I think like early fall.
And usually whenever it comes out, it has that set $100, 100 and something price. And then it drops to like it's 60. And so
yeah, don't pre-order it. Wait till it comes out and get it on Amazon. You probably get 33% off or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And so that's something on my list. That, and then if I get an omnibus, I want to get the original Marvel series.
I think Kevin J. Anderson also has copies of these signed on his website, which is Wordfire Press.
Yeah.
So if anyone's interested, I have a signed copy as well. I had pre-ordered this because I don't really like to read from my original trade paperbacks. I have Read a Net Uprising in single issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
I got those from Things from Another World, but because Frida Nat Uprising was so difficult to acquire back then, I actually read the entirety of Tales of the Jedi, skipped over Frida Nat Uprising, and then went back and read it probably 99 or so. So
wow,
it was much later than everything else.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hello, Darth Sidious.
All right, so we have an opening crawl for this one.
Yes, we do. Let's see. How I discovered this was through the audio or the radio dramas, not really radio dramas, the audio dramas or whatever they did with that. I had found The Golden Age of the Sith at the comic shop, read that, and then I found the audio dramas, and I actually had not read this physically until this week. And I don't know, I feel like it flows a lot better like this, though those audio dramas are fantastic, but they're modified in a way to take the what are they called, like the narration,
the dialogue, and make it flow a little bit better. Yeah,
right.
You're exactly right.
Or they'll have the characters just info dump a bunch of stuff, and sometimes it's like, oh, okay, that takes me out a little bit, but being able to read it physically, I felt like it flowed a lot better. It was also very fast.
Right.
But yes, you were saying about the opening crawl and.
Well, just to go back to what you were saying about the audio drama is a little bit different experience. You get a little bit of extra stuff, and then they leave some stuff out from the comic. So don't necessarily think you can listen to the audio drama and get all the information from the comic. They're a little different.
Right.
There's some funny stuff. There's like background noise that they put into the audio dramas, extra dialogue and stuff. And it's a little bit more modern because they released that later. It wasn't 94 like this comic was issued. So they kind of knew a little bit more about the continuity and the Republic and things like that.
There was even dialogue from soldiers in that, which was kind of comical because some of them had Southern accents.
Right. And I like the news article, like Seto and Alima. There's like this news. They're watching the news in the comic, but there's extra things running in the background on the audio drama that you don't get in the comic.
Right. And I think a lot of the Alima and what's his name?
Seto Kito.
Seto, yeah.
Kito.
Seto and Alima, they also appear in the earlier audio dramas as kind of a setup like during the Nomi Sunrider arc, there's a little bit of them sprinkled in, and then a little bit of Uluk Kaldroma sprinkled in, just to, I guess, make it flow better. And so
I forgot about that. That's interesting.
So like some of the stuff that they took out for the Freedom Nad uprising, they actually had some of it in like the Nomi Sunrider parts. They just sprinkled it in. And so we open up here to Chaos.
Yeah, they had just defeated Queen Amanoa, right?
Yes.
And she was a follower of Frida Nad. We don't get a whole lot about the nature of Frida Nad, but I think there's some extra information in like the letters and there's some of this included in the Epic collection where there's extra text about the history of like the Jedi, the different characters and tales of the Jedi, and some of it I think I can't point to it exactly, but some of it has to do with the Frida Nad's background and the fact that he was a fallen Jedi, but he had actually went to Yavin 4 where Naga Sadao had been exiled, and that's how he got his dark side abilities. Basically, that's how he came to the dark side.
I think some of that might be mentioned later on whenever Exar Kun goes there. I think they might reference a little bit of, oh, you've come just like Freedon Nad came.
Right.
But I should read those letters. I still have the single issues. I'll have to dig them up because I think that they should be in those, correct?
I think so. The only single issues I still have are the Ashcan edition and the two single issues of Frida Nad Uprising. I don't know if they're in there or not. It's been a long time. I have them bagged and boarded, so I don't open them too much.
Right. So we open to Onderon and the great city of Iziz, or as Dave Filoni likes to call it, ISIS. But it's the aftermath of the Queen's attack and trying to take over. And so Tatanita shows up, and Tatanita, when we last saw him, showed up in the Nomi Sunrider saga with, I can't remember his name.
Oswillem.
So they both show up, and so they're kind of having a funeral for the Queen. That's correct?
Yeah. So Master Arca was there, and if you remember, Master Arca kind of came in and saved the day when Queen Amanoa revealed her dark side powers, and Ulick and Kay were kind of in over their head, and Tatanita was with them. Oswillem, I believe, was with Nomi in her story arc, and I don't think she was here, but she comes in later
right.
in this arc.
She is with Master Thorn going to the Jedi Temple in Ossus.
Right. And so what they're doing is, because Queen Amanoa died, I think they're removing the remains of Frida Nad and Queen Amanoa so that their followers don't get any dark side abilities from their corpse or their sarcophagus, because it's kind of a running theme that when the Sith are buried, like on Korriban, they still maintain some of their powers even after they died or something, or this dark side essence.
And I think it's very restricted to like the proximity of the like where their corpses, and then also like possessing people, because I think Freedon Nad follows some characters, even though his corpse isn't there. It's not really like the Jedi where they can appear to the certain force wielders kind of anywhere. It's kind of it's more restricted, at least to my knowledge. Does that sound about right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right. Although Frida Nad tends to appear to Ulick and Exar Kun back when they were fighting each other and when they team up in Dark Lords of the Sith. So they do have some wide-reaching ability sometimes. And there's one comment Darth Sidious says in the opening crawl. It shows that Tales of the Jedi comics are contents of the Jedi Holocron, and that's right. We see back in the original arc, Golden Age of the Sith, that basically what you're reading here, that this whole comic is encased in a holocron. So essentially you're reading tales from the past. I don't know if it continues all the way through Tales of the Jedi, but I think for a lot of them that is the case.
Right. And so while they're discussing about all the stuff that's been going on, they are attacked by the followers of Freedon Nad, led by, wrote his name down,
Warbnull.
And Warbnull, he has a very interesting designed armor. I mean, he's on the cover of the issue. I think he's a really cool looking character for this. It kind of stinks because this is kind of his only time that he's shining. The Jedi end up fighting against him against the Darksiders there.
He's in the short story Hammer. There's a short story that came out 2013, 2012, somewhere around there. It was a Star Wars Insider, and it talks about Warbnull's armor and that it still retains some power, after his death. And I think it hints that Warbnull's spirit is still somehow out and about. So it's been a while since I read that short story, but it's interesting. Unfortunately, it came out right before the expanded universe ended, so we didn't really get any follow-up on that. But yeah, Warbnull's his armor kind of reminds me of Flint from The Apprentice in the Marvel Comics issue. Very reminiscent of that, kind of Darth Vader-esque.
Right. I'll have to check that out. What's it called again?
Hammer. I think it's just called Hammer. It's a short story. It's also in the Titan collection that came out that collected a lot of the Insider exclusive fiction.
Okay, I'll have to look at that then. Yeah. I think I have the first part of that. I'm planning on collecting the second part. But okay. What do you think of this opening?
I like it. I mean, Warbnull's a really cool character. I like that there's kind of dark side partisans following Frida Nad, and that's where that's like the Queen Aminoa's former followers, and they're still following King Omen, who we'll find out about later. So there's some good action, some lightsaber fights, some people getting cut in half there by Tato Nita. Pretty cool.
This part here, when she's like, let's wait for it to go away. Maybe my father can help us. Master Arca is just standing over. Your father? Yes, he's been confined on life support. And he's just that. Now, her father wasn't in the previous one, was he?
No, he was mentioned, and there's like a throwaway line at the end of the Eula Quell drama, Beast Riders of Onderon arc, where it says, King Omen, it's rumored King Omen is still alive and he has followers or something.
Right.
And it almost seems like they weren't sure if they were going to finish this arc or add more stories on Onderon. And I guess it turns out that they were. There is a little bit of a continuity issue in here where Galea says her father's alive, but then when she goes to actually meet his father, or her father in the catacombs later on in this story, she thinks he's dead. So it's a little bit of an inconsistent dialogue there. It's a continuity error, I think.
let's see. Okay. Then it cuts to King Omen. Oh, sorry. And he's like, "My daughter, why do you never visit me?" Um, and yeah, she introduces him to the Jedi, um, Master Arca, and it's just Master Arca and Uluk down here.
Okay, so I guess that line isn't in the comic, but it's in the audio drama. She kind of says, "Oh, Father, I thought you had died," or something. So
Yes,
it doesn't exactly match, but I guess the comic is consistent.
right. I guess, but they kind of explain some things that go on. But then Freedon Nad shows up, and Master Arca and Freedon Nad have back and forth. Um, and then King Omen just like straight up chokes Master Arca, knocks him
Right.
out.
Right.
And then the acolytes come in to take the daughter, but Uluk Kaldroma fights them off. Good lightsaber fighting here. The lightsabers don't look as ancient as they did in the last issues. What do you think of this?
They're all green too. It's kind of just a green, like we're.
Yeah,
I know they're trying to trace the way Uluk kind of swings the lightsaber, but it's a little bit too much slime green color in the background. And there's a little bit of a difference between here in the audio drama. Kay plays a role in the audio drama, and I think he gets injured, but I don't see him in the comic here.
no.
So that's interesting. And there's an extended fight scene here in the comic. Uluk just hacks Warbnill's head off here.
Yeah,
pretty quickly, pretty early on.
yeah. So much for the the guy on the cover of this thing. Something I did notice, and it's just a little aesthetic thing. The archways in the windows kind of look like Lord Shadowspawn from the. I don't know if you can see that down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw that and I was like, well, that's weird. But
Right.
just a little thing there.
Same shadows.
Yep. He's been there the whole time. And so the princess gets reignited with her husband. They got away. They got to safety. They prepare for battle. Their Master Arca has been captured by the acolytes and Freedon Nad. And then we cut to Ossus. But is there anything from that that stood out to you or you wanted to talk about?
No, not too much. Just like I said, the audio drama adds a little bit to this opening scene when they're in the catacombs there, but pretty fast paced in the comic. You almost like have to go back. You almost get whiplash from how fast it goes here, and then goes from Ossus, because Onderon kind of looks here a little bit like Korriban. But I guess it says they're not in the walled city; they're in the catacombs of the walled city. So I guess that's why you have the temples and such. So
that would make sense, because this is kind of like where the Queen was in the last storyline with Uluk Kaldroma. But we cut to Ossus. Ossus is where there's a great library. There's a temple. There's where a bunch of people go to learn to be a Jedi, one of the temples. We run into a Jedi Master, Bodo Sius Voss, and he's somebody that we will see more of later, but he is helping the Jedi construct their lightsabers. And so Nomi comes here, brings the crystals that her husband, Andor, was going to bring to the Jedi. after he was trained to be a Jedi, but he had died, and so she took it, gave it to them, and they were able to use it for constructing her new lightsaber. At least that's what.
Right. So
Yeah.
this is a good connection because it connects the previous issues with Nomi Sunrider, and also shows some of the Jedi that we see later, Dace, Shanoab, all these Jedi that are part of her trainee class will appear later in Dark Lords of the Sith and the Sith War and such. And also, Master Vodo, he's drawn very differently than he is in Dark Lords of the Sith. We see a lot more detail than we do. He's kind of a red, kind of like a bug blur, but here we see a lot more detail, and he's almost like a shrimp type of species here.
He is. I had forgotten that he was in here. I don't even know if the audio drama covered this part.
I don't think so, because the audio drama kind of cuts back to Coruscant at this point. So
right.
Yeah.
So this was very surprising to see him, and how much they had, taken from this to later issues. She still has her goofy haircut. So she's training here for some time, for a few weeks. And then they are called together because the Jedi on Onderon had called out for help for the Jedi and to the Republic. And they are only sending 5 Jedi from here. Let's see. Do you know how to pronounce their names?
Oh, well, Dace is pretty easy.
Right, Dace.
Shanoab, Kulu, Quarrel Talk, and Krithkak. Yeah. One of them is the same species as the tax collector on Tatooine, I think. The Felterpren Travag.
Okay.
He's got the cone heads there.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. So a lot of variety of species, and it definitely feels like a intergalactic class of Jedi here on Ossus.
Right.
And as Darth Sidious says, this is the first appearance of Ossus. I think that may be true. I don't know if it's in the Golden Age of the Sith or not. It may be briefly in there, but maybe not chronologically, but like release wise, this might be the first appearance besides its mention in Dark Empire.
You said Darth Sidious, and I thought you were talking about the real Darth Sidious. And
No.
I see. But yes, he is the Boba Fett Darth Maul of Tales of the Jedi.
Sure, very true.
Cool suit, all great stuff. Dead. 2 pages in, like, goodness.
Yeah, I really like this connection, but with Nomi Sunrider and the crystals and the Jedi class, and we see that she's actually being trained, because later we'll see her actually fight. I know she fought a little bit in her original arc, but she had no training.
Right.
So.
This is more down the lines of, okay, she's actually like,
she's part of the Jedi Order. She's getting acclimated.
She's not a Mary Sue.
Right.
It's like, rereading those, I was starting to just get annoyed. I was like, what? And then I played through my head like, oh, she's just a puppet of the Force. And then Master Thorn is like, you used none of the Force, didn't even do anything. It was all you. And I was like, oh, goodness gracious. But I'm glad she's getting her training and, enhancing her abilities. But she goes off, and then we cut to Republic City, and it is established that this is Coruscant, and we see the Republic talking about the issues on Onderon. There is concern there about, this is not just a skirmish. This is against the dark side. And they know that it's something that the Jedi are capable of handling, and they're arguing, should we get involved? Should we not get involved? But in the meantime, here we see this pair of cousins, and for the people that have read along with the Golden Age of the Sith and the Fall of the Sith Empire, we're introduced to the Emperor Teta, and so these are her descendants, and so they're heirs to that throne, but they're interested in the dark side, so they go to
museum.
A museum. Their names are Alima and
Seto.
Sato. And so they go to this museum, and they're wanting to see the dark side exhibit, which I could completely see this being prohibited in, like the Republic later on. Probably for this very reason.
I think it does mention, I'm not sure if it's in the comic or the audio drama, but it does say the Sith are banned, like from the Republic, like they're off limits. You can't be a Sith follower or a Sith acolyte in any way. But these cousins, the heirs to the Empress Teta throne, they're part of this cult, which are called the Krath, I think, and they are into dark side magic. So I guess they feel like they can find some information in this museum, which I guess is on Coruscant. I can't tell.
I think so. Yes. Elsewhere on Coruscant, the followers of the dark side are at work.
Interesting. They also have dinosaurs there, it appears, in the exhibit. If you look on the lower left.
Yep, right there.
Yep.
Spacesuit. Is the Ark of the Covenant in here, or is that just in?
I haven't looked, but you could probably find some neat stuff. They have arrowheads on the next page.
Yeah, they do. And so they're just working their way with the person at the museum, and they end up getting their hands on a Sith book. It's not the Book of Sith, but it contains a lot of.
It is red, though. It looks like the Book of Sith.
It does.
It might be
the early pieces.
Yeah, they're also drawn a little bit different. Alima and Seto, they kind of look like they're drawn like the outsiders from the Onderon planet. Like the Beast Riders.
And then they're trying to read the book, but they're unable to because it is in Sith, an ancient language that they don't understand. So that they have to take C-3PO to. Oh wait, no, that's something else. They see on the news that is under attack of Sith magic and all kinds of darksiders, and they're like, "Ooh, let's go to Onderon." And so they go, and they follow. They follow the fleet, yeah. They
have a royal yacht.
Yeah,
I think they have their own fleet too. It shows that when we see them in Dark Lords of the Sith, I believe they have their own fleet.
Okay.
So,
but that is the end of issue number 1. What do you think of that?
I think it was great. I like that we got to see Warb Null. He had a little bit premature ending. King Omen was pretty cool, pretty creepy. How he's just living in the catacombs there, chilling out, and had a good fight scene at the beginning. We saw more of Nomi Sunrider and her training, so everything was pretty well laid out. We see Seto and Alima there, so there was no wasted pages in this particular issue. I think everything's good here. 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I'd say I'd say that this is like top tier Star Wars. This is up there. This, I think, is better than the other Tales of the Jedi storylines, and so I think it's only going up from here. I think I don't know how to go.
It's hard to say because like some of the introduction to Eula Queldrama's arc was like the introduction to Onderon and them explaining the city and all that. There's a lot of backstory,
Mm-hmm.
but here they're able to jump right into the fight. So
Right.
I think that had benefit of coming second chronologically.
It does. Darth Sidious says in the comments, this is the first time the Sith species or the Dark Jedi who ruled them were mentioned. Golden Age of the Sith was released after this.
Okay.
Interesting. All right, let's dive in to issue number 2. The covers are amazing.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I like it even without the text. There's probably gonna be a glare on there, but I mean that could be a poster right there.
Oh wait, let me pull you. Oh yeah, I want to make posters of these.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I just don't. Honestly, I don't have wall space. Like.
I mean, these Dark Empire and Tales of the Jedi have some absolute fantastic cover art.
I'd say they probably have the best comic covers. Those and Crimson Empire have.
Mm-hmm.
It's all Dave Dorman. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Crimson Empire seems a little bit repetitive.
Yeah.
Because there's 6 of them and it's all like royal guards, but
right, yeah.
These they really wanted to sell these comics because these were some of the first like Dark Horse issues. So
oh yeah,
they really spared no expense for these and got a great result.
Mm-hmm. Does he? Oh, sorry. Does he draw like inside art at all? I know he doesn't do any Star Wars, but
he still does Star Wars. He does some like new canon cover art occasionally. He'll do like variant cover art and whatnot.
Does he do any of like the art on the inside? Like
no, he does. Well, he did like the Dark Forces novellas. He did the art for those.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of that's like interior art. He might have done some stuff for like the Essential Guides. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But he mainly does cover art.
All right. All right. Let's dive in. So we have an opening crawl. It cuts to the Republic showing up to help the rocket jumpers spill out over the skies of Iziz, the ruling city of Onderon. So we're back at Onderon. We see the cousins in their yacht landing right into the mess. And so they end up getting hit.
I had totally forgot Settle and Alima were in this until a couple weeks ago when I reread this and re-listened to the audio dramas. But I guess this is like the Republic peacekeeping force, like the NATO army is coming in to pacify Onderon here.
So the Republic's doing what they're doing, and then they crash land. They end up escaping.
Bless you.
Thank you. And so the other Jedi show up. Nomi's team shows up, and it's just chaos. Artwork, fantastic. They're fighting against the acolytes. I do have to say that their attire, you wouldn't expect. You wouldn't expect the attire of these Darksiders to look like this.
Go back a couple pages to the guy with the skull. He's got like a chain around his neck and a skull. There, he's sitting in that whatever that vehicle is. Just zoom in. Yeah, that guy.
I don't know if I can zoom in at all.
He kind of looks like Ultimate Warrior a little bit.
Oh yeah.
The mask.
Yeah. My gosh, he's just like, yes.
I guess
we're supposed to wear our uniforms. Like they're all here with their Lorax looking hats.
I don't know, but yeah, great costumes.
Yes. That's what Star Wars is missing.
Right. I mean, they just put a little bit of thought, a little bit of creativity into the costume.
What they had was they were like, all right, we need to have soldiers of the dark side. All right, let's dress them like German extremists from the 1940s, and put a little thing on their hat so we're not too obvious. And so great action. There's a little bit of dialogue, but there's a lot of just narration going through. It looks like there's a warp now type of armor up there.
Oh, where is that? Oh yeah. Is that blood? Because we see some people getting slashed by a lightsaber, and we see some blood stain. I don't know if that's supposed to be blood spatter or not.
I don't know. I do know that I think there was a retcon, and I didn't know about this until I think this week. But the guy that got his arm chopped off in the cantina from A New Hope, you see blood whenever his arm's on the ground. And I think they retconned it where those species, their blood doesn't cauterize.
Okay.
And so this could be a case of that. Or
this wouldn't be the first time we saw in comic form blood from a lightsaber. But there's some interesting dialogue here. The guy that swings the lightsaber and cuts the guy with the armor down, he says, hey, this guy's some kind of antique machine, but I can feel dark force radiating off of him. So I don't know if that's supposed to be Warp Null's armor, like some guy gets into Warp Null's armor again, because that would coalesce well with the short story Hammer, where the power is kind of from the armor, or that there's some sort of dark side energy attached to that. So I hadn't realized that before, but that's an interesting point.
Yeah. I was actually thinking this guy behind him, behind that Jedi. But the more I look at this guy too, that could be the case here.
Maybe there's multiple copies of the armor.
That's what we need. Somehow Warp Null has returned. And so we later cut to the Jedi that we know from. They catch up with this other Jedi, and they're fighting.
One of the Jedi dies in the previous panel. The Feltapren Travag species.
Yep, he does.
The goat. I think he's the Gotol. I think so. But he was one of the guys being trained with Nomi, and unfortunately meets his end right there.
Mm-hmm. And then it cuts to Nomi, and she's trying to use
battle meditation.
Battle meditation. She gets pushed back, and she just freaks out. And then Ulrich is like, "Oh no, woman." Let me help you. I heard your husband just died. What's your name? No. And so
so she senses King Omen, like she doesn't know who it is, but like a dark side presence, and that's what interrupts her force meditation or battle meditation.
Yeah. Um, what do you think of this battle scene here before we move on to this part?
I like it, that scene of Nomi when she's doing the Force meditation. That's very iconic. That's used in the Star Wars Galaxy magazine. There's a poster that talks about the Jedi in one of the issues, and that picture has a couple of like stills of Jedi artwork, and that one from Nomi is used there. So I remember that very well. It's very iconic and memorable to me.
All right. So then we cut to the cousins speaking with some of the acolytes, and they are brought to King Omen. I found this part a little odd. They just let them walk up. Of course, they have the Sith book, and which I guess King Omen is so like engraved with the dark side and like the prophecies of what are to come. They're like, ah, yes, these ones will carry on my work. Which
and it looks like one of the characters there. It looks a lot like Exar Kun. When King Omen, yeah.
Yes.
So if you look in the first panel on the lower left there,
yep,
yeah, that one. I don't know. A lot of reminiscent character drawings, I guess.
And these are all Darksiders that have lightsabers, like,
right?
Which is interesting. Like, I'd like to understand more of the inner workings of this Freedon Nad cult here.
Yeah,
you know?
This guy kind of looks like Saint Francis of Assisi here, in the previous one.
Yeah,
I don't know if you see it.
Which one?
Go back a page.
Him?
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
A little bit. Took a great risk coming to Onderon at a time like this.
Yeah.
Join us in our dark side cult.
Oh, jeez. All right. And so they give him the book, and because they can't read it, and so he gives them an amulet. And he's like, ah, yes, you're with us. Cool. We can completely trust you. But, you know, he's seen the future and the prophecies and different things, and he knows that they have an important part to play later. And so they're able to read the book by having the amulet on. But King Omen also makes a copy of the book, which is crazy because he's just like, here, hey, make a copy of this one. This at once. I'll do it myself, my lord.
And his name is Novar, who I think we saw him before in the Eula Queldroma Beast Riders of Onderon arc. Here, so. Novar, have a scribe copy this at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to Master Arca, not in the most flattering of things. Goodness. And so he's showing that he's torturing him and trying to break into his mind. But then, boom, in comes... Wait. Oh, no. We cut back to... Uluk and the Jedi task force. Clay loses his arm again, a metallic arm, and then he has this great piece of dialogue. The dark side scum chopped off my arm. I've still got the flesh and blood one. And then he forces it and kills the dark side.
Again, we got blood spatter too.
Yeah.
Great.
So there's something with these guys. don't know. But action dialogue going through here. Um, they break in. They finally catch up, and they're about to take out King Omen, but he uses the Force against Nomi, and she freaks out. Uluk gets out of the way. He dives in, breaks his exoskeleton because he's just mush, and then he just like falls apart. And then Freedon Nad's like, "Great, what are you doing here?" As he's trying to copy be there with the books being copied. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that's not them. That is the cousins. They're running in, and so they see Freedon Nad, and he ends up giving them swords and the books they need, and he lets them go through. And then he goes to the side of King Omen, and they have their back and forth here. Never.
Right.
They
I
all
like the
belong
I
to
like
the
the
dark side.
I like the guy that was copying him. He just like either fell asleep or I guess Frida Nad put him out or something.
Yeah,
all- he's just like crashed on the desk while he's copying it. That reminds me of my college days, doing homework. But anyway, King Omen can just like stand up all of a sudden too. But when Eula comes, because before he was kind of inclined on that bed.
He was
before. Yeah.
But I guess the power of the dark side, and then he chops up his stuff, and then he's done. But
Right.
The final confronting of I think it's the final Freedon Nad and Master Arca. And say the Jedi have not won today, as you will one day learn. The Jedi have lost. And so it seems like it is a victory, but really all of these things that have happened here have just set in motion what is to come. And so we see the cousins leaving with all the information that they need. And then we see, they end up, I think it's here where they put the bodies.
With King Omen. Yeah.
King Omen, the Queen, and then Freedon Nad. And they end up putting it in a tomb, not there on the planet, but on the moon. And then Uluk Kaldroma and Nomi Sunrider talk to Master Arca, and they're asking about the prophecies.
Right. And it's interesting because Frida Nad, I think, first encounters Exar Kun in the next arc on Korriban, if I remember right. So he can travel, like his spirit is not confined to that particular planet.
So I think what happens is Exar Kun leaves Vodosios Voss, goes to Onderon, speaks with Master Arca, and Master Arca's like, you need to leave or something. And he finds out that the tomb is on the moon. He goes to the moon, finds Freedon Nad, and then Freedon Nad says, go to Korriban. And I think he starts to possess Exar Kun, and then he's able to kind of follow along with him.
Gotcha. Like King Omen before him. Apparently.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so he's able to stay. He's not like omnipresent where he can just appear anywhere, kind of like. Or
that makes sense. That makes sense. I think he has the talisman too, right? If I remember right.
Maybe. Which I'm sure. Yeah. I know. Is it the same talisman that the cousins have?
Maybe not.
I don't know. We'll get there when we when we do.
I don't know, but like these two issues, like I said, I hadn't read them in order, and I don't think you necessarily need to, but you get a lot more information. There's a lot of connecting pieces in both of these issues that's beneficial to your enjoyment of the other stories.
Right.
So for that reason, I'd highly rate both of these.
Oh yeah.
Issues. I know it's a short issue, it's a short 2-issue series, but they definitely make the most of it, and every panel counts here.
Right. Something here that I find is very interesting is that Master Arca opens up about his fears of these prophecies, and how the Jedi must cling to the light. The light is our strength and our ally. With the light of the Force, the Jedi will stand forever. And he passes this on to Uluk Caldroma. And then we see the wait. No. That's the princess. And here at the end.
Or in Kira, yeah.
Or in Kira. Yeah. Okay. But these are solid.
Yeah, it's cool that they have kind of inspirational quotes from the Jedi Master. That's something we saw from the original films from Yoda and Obi-Wan, and they did a good job in at least the early comics and stories to try to match that here with Master Arca, to make him kind of a prophetic Jedi Master in addition to a teacher. So I really like that.
Yeah, he definitely, he's up there for me with Jedi Masters. I'd say, as of course we have the movies and they're popular because of that. But if this was if George Lucas was like, hey, you know what? We're going to make this, a film series, he would be just as iconic, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Darth Sidious says in the chat, in Darth Plagueis, the character mentions Omen as the example of why deformed by the dark side isn't something to be afraid of, but rather something to embrace. That's interesting. I need to do a reread of Darth Plagueis.
Yeah, because it's not mentioned, at least in here, I don't think of how old King Omen is, but I think in some of the associated lore, he's over 100. So
Really?
it's he should have died, years ago, but the dark side's still keeping him alive. Kind of like, not unlike the Night Sisters, Gethzarian is supposed to be super old, but she's being kept alive by the dark side. Even though the dark side consumes your body, apparently it can keep you alive, keep you going. He also has that technology, I guess. It could be part of it, but there's a whole lot of stuff going on there.
There is a lot. I think overall, these two issues, top 10, 10 out of 10. StarCrash, maybe 6 or 6, but 6 out of 10. I don't know. What would you rate that one?
That's generous. I'd give StarCrash a 1 or a 2, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The FreedomNet Uprising by itself, I don't know if it would be 10 out of 10, but in conjunction to where it is and how good the stories, before and after it are, and just so much it adds to it, I can't give it less than a 10 out of 10. It just does everything a benefit. It makes everything better.
Right.
Even though it's not essential in and of itself, I think it just adds so much that there's really no flaws in it that I can see.
Right. It's almost like putting it together. You have to put this together with the Uluk Caldroma and Nomi Sunrider storylines. because that's what it is. This is it's kind of the bookend for the start. Okay, this is the beginning of this. And it feels like those ones were too worried about setting things up, which was good. Glad they did that. But this one took that and was like, we're going to make it great. You know, right. We took that really good and then we're going to make it really great. And I think that's what it makes it stand so much. Like if someone's going to read anything Star Wars, this has got to be on that list. Or you're not going to get the full story.
Right. And contrast this to something like StarCrash, which they try to tell a story in just one issue, or right. Contrast this to like Empire's End, where they try to tell what should be a 6-issue series. I know it was cut to 2 issues, not of their own doing, but like they try to jam pack a story together in such a way where you can't really tell a story in 2 issues. Here, they don't try to tell a story in 2 issues. They just add extra elements of storytelling to make the surrounding issues, the Tales of the Jedi line as a whole, that much better.
Right. Was this Tom Veitch's last Tales of the Jedi?
I think that's right. Just look. Tom Veitch. He might have done a little bit of Dark Lords of the Sith. Let me look.
He co-wrote it with Kevin J. Anderson.
Yeah.
And then that was when it was, and then he did Dark Empire 2. He did one of the most Tales of Mos Eisley, and then Empire's End. Okay. I didn't know if this was, he was still working.
And Kevin J. Anderson, when Veitch quit, of course, Kevin J. Anderson was working on the notes and the draft and the story treatment that Veitch had wrote. So, I mean, really, he should be giving credit to all of it.
Right.
Because this was his idea at the end of the day.
For sure. Do you have anything else to say about these 3 issues?
StarCrash, I mean, not a fan. like I said, 6 out of 10 I think is being very generous. I get that it's silly, and you could make jokes about the fact that it has Nintendo references. I guess some people might like that, but for me it was very throwaway. Whereas the Frida Nat Uprising, absolutely incredible. Again, probably not essential, but it adds so much. Kind of like Darth Plagueis, the novel. It's not really an essential story. It doesn't add anything to like the saga of Star Wars, but just adds so many incredible details that you have to read it, and that alone makes it one of the best Star Wars novels. It's just that it adds so much in terms of the lore.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to going through the Sith Wars and the Dark Lords of the Sith. But yeah, do you have anything that you'd like to plug or anything?
The only thing I have going is there's an article for the expandeduniverse.com. I should be writing. It should come out this month. A little bit of a spicy topic. It's has to do with continuity. It's an opinion piece, but I'm not really taking an opinion either for or against. I think people know my stance on that, but I'm kind of presenting some other arguments that people may not consider when people normally debate of whether Disney should continue the expanded universe. There's some other things that aren't discussed, and I'm going to present them in the article, and hopefully get people to maybe think about some other elements that aren't really part of the conversation. So
okay, all right,
should come out this month in June.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to reading that. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Scott, for joining me tonight. Thank you, Brendan, as well, even though you had to leave early. But please check these guys out on on expandeduniverse.com, posting articles. Brendan has his YouTube channel, Quinlan Boss. But thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Everyone, have a good night.